You don't need a spaceship to stand somewhere that looks like it shouldn't exist on this planet. You just need a plane ticket. And in a couple of cases, a genuinely good reason to risk it. Scattered across Earth right now are places so strange, so chemically hostile, or so visually wrong that scientists studying them often use them as stand-ins for what other worlds might actually look like. Some of these places are burning. Some of them are the wrong color entirely. One of them is a lake that appears to be bleeding. None of it is faked, filtered, or exaggerated for a thumbnail. It's just what this planet is quietly capable of, in places most people will never happen to drive past. Let's go through 10 of them, starting with the one that looks the most like Mars itself. The Danakil Depression in northern Ethiopia is widely considered one of the most hostile environments on Earth that people actually permanently live near. It sits over 100 meters below sea level, in a region so consistently scorching that it's frequently cited as the hottest inhabited place on the planet, with average year-round temperatures regularly climbing well past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground itself looks less like Earth and more like a leaked photo from a different planet's surface. Acid pools in electric shades of yellow, green, and orange, bubbling sulfur vents, and salt formations twisted into alien shapes by constant volcanic and geothermal activity underneath. The whole region sits directly over a spot where three tectonic plates are actively pulling apart from one another, slowly tearing the crust open, which is exactly why it's so relentlessly volcanic and geothermally active in the first place. NASA has actually sent researchers here to study its extremophile microbes, specifically because the chemistry is close enough to what scientists expect on Mars that it makes a legitimate research stand-in for another planet. Head to Bolivia, and you'll find the Salar de Uyuni, the largest salt flat on the planet, covering more than 4,000 square miles of blinding white ground. For most of the year, it looks like a cracked, endless salt desert stretching to the horizon in every direction. Flat enough that it's used to calibrate satellites orbiting Earth because there's nothing on the surface to distort the measurement. But during the rainy season, a thin layer of water settles across the flat and turns it into something else entirely, the largest natural mirror on Earth, reflecting the sky so perfectly that the horizon disappears completely, and it becomes almost impossible to tell where the ground ends and the sky begins. Beneath all that salt sits one of the largest known lithium reserves on the planet, quietly essential to a huge portion of the world's batteries. In Turkmenistan, there's a hole in the middle of the desert that's been on fire, non-stop, since 1971. It's called the Darvaza gas crater, though most people just call it the door to hell. The most widely repeated version of the story is that a Soviet drilling operation accidentally punched into an underground natural gas cavern. The ground collapsed into a massive crater, and engineers set it on fire to burn off the escaping gas, expecting it to clear out in a matter of days. More than 50 years later, it's still burning, a roughly 230-foot-wide pit, glowing orange in the middle of the desert at night, visible from a considerable distance, looking less like an industrial accident and more like something an entire planet would use as its light source. Off the coast of Western Australia sits Lake Hillier, a lake that is permanently, unmistakably bubblegum pink. Not a seasonal tint, not a trick of sunset lighting, an all-year saturated pink that looks almost artificially dyed. Scientists have traced the color to a combination of salt-loving microorganisms living in the lake's extremely high salinity, including a microalgae called Dunaliella salina that produces reddish pigments as protection against intense sun and salt stress, along with pigmented, salt-tolerant bacteria that add to the effect. What's genuinely strange is that even when researchers remove water from the lake and store it separately, it stays pink. And despite multiple detailed studies, scientists still don't have a single fully agreed-upon explanation for exactly why Lake Hillier holds its color so much more consistently than other pink lakes around the world. In Indonesia, the Ijen volcano hides something that shouldn't, by any normal intuition, be possible. At night, sections of its crater appear to burn with electric blue flames, flickering across the rock like something out of a science fiction film, drawing hikers up a steep, dangerous trail in the middle of the night just to see it in person. It isn't lava. It's sulfuric gas escaping the volcano at extremely high temperature and pressure, sometimes exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it exits the vents, igniting on contact with air and burning with a blue flame that's only visible after dark, since daylight simply washes it out. During the day, the crater reveals a second alien feature entirely, a turquoise, highly acidic lake sitting inside it, one of the most acidic natural bodies of water anywhere on the planet, acidic enough to dissolve metal over time. Local miners still work the crater's edges by hand, extracting raw sulfur while wearing minimal protection against fumes that would send most visitors running. One of the more genuinely dangerous jobs still being done the hard way anywhere on Earth. In northwestern China, the Zhangye Danxia landform looks like something painted rather than eroded. Layered bands of red, orange, yellow, and green ripple across the hillsides in wide stripes, the result of millions of years of mineral-rich sandstone and siltstone being deposited, compressed, and then slowly pushed upward and exposed by tectonic activity and weathering. Different mineral content in each layer, iron oxide producing the reds, other trace minerals producing the yellows and greens, creates a landscape that looks intentionally designed, striped like a layered cake carved directly out of a mountain range. The effect shifts depending on the time of day and the angle of sunlight, meaning the exact same hillside can look noticeably different in the early morning than it does at midday, something local photographers have built entire careers around chasing. In northern Tanzania, Lake Natron looks from above like a lake made of blood. Its water carries extreme alkalinity, driven by volcanic minerals draining into the basin with essentially nowhere to escape, concentrating into some of the most caustic natural water on the planet, caustic enough to burn the skin and eyes of most animals that touch it. Its striking red color comes from salt-loving microorganisms that thrive specifically in that intense alkalinity. And there's a genuinely eerie side effect. Animals that die in or near the lake are sometimes naturally preserved by the extreme mineral content, calcified into statue-like remains found along its shores, an accidental, unsettling kind of natural mummification. In Antarctica, near the base of the Taylor Glacier, there's a stain on the ice that looks, unmistakably, like blood pouring out of the glacier itself. It's called blood falls, and for decades after its discovery in 1911, nobody could confidently explain the color. The real cause turned out to be a trapped ancient pool of extremely salty, iron-rich water sealed beneath the glacier for possibly over 1 million years, cut off entirely from oxygen and sunlight. When that brine occasionally seeps out through cracks in the ice and hits open air, the iron inside it oxidizes almost instantly. The same basic chemistry that turns exposed metal rusty red, except here it happens fast enough and dramatically enough to look like the glacier itself is bleeding. In British Columbia, Canada, there's a lake that spends most of the year looking completely ordinary, and then, every summer, transforms into something that looks computer-generated. As the water evaporates in the heat, it leaves behind large, distinct, almost perfectly circular mineral deposits across the lakebed, forming what looks like a giant, naturally occurring polka-dot pattern stretching across the entire basin. Known as Spotted Lake, its water is unusually rich in minerals including magnesium sulfate and calcium, and as the water level drops through the dry season, those minerals crystallize into individually colored pools, ringed by natural mineral crusts, each one a slightly different shade depending on its specific mineral content. And finally, in Yemen, roughly 250 miles off the coast of the Arabian Peninsula, sits Socotra Island, a landmass so long isolated from the mainland that evolution took its plant life somewhere no other place on Earth quite went. Roughly a third of its plant species exist nowhere else on the planet. Its signature tree, the dragon's blood tree, grows in a strange, inverted umbrella shape, a dense, tightly packed canopy sitting atop a bare trunk, engineered by evolution to funnel what little rainfall the island gets straight down toward its own roots. The tree's dark red sap, which gives it its name, has been harvested for thousands of years and used historically as a dye and in traditional medicine, long before anyone fully understood why the tree had evolved to look nothing like anything growing on the nearby mainland. Walking through a forest of them looks less like anywhere else on Earth, and considerably more like concept art for an alien world, which is, more or less, exactly what millions of years of extreme isolation actually built. 10 places, all real, all standing right here on the same planet you're on right now. A 100-degree acid landscape studied as a Mars analog, a mirror the size of a small country, a hole that's been burning for over 50 years, a lake that stays pink for reasons science still can't fully pin down, blue fire hot enough to melt metal, blood red water that calcifies whatever touches it, a bleeding glacier hiding a sealed, million-year-old pocket of ancient brine, a polka-dotted lakebed, sandstone striped like a painting, and a forest that looks like it was designed by someone who had never actually seen a tree before. You don't actually need to leave this planet to find somewhere that looks like you shouldn't be standing on it. You just need to know where to look, and in at least two of these cases, be willing to hold your breath while you're there.